How's it going, sports card fans, wrestling collectors? Tom here from CollectAWrestlePalooza, recording this on a Saturday for one reason. I like to record my videos on the weekends because I never get sick. And you want to know why? Because I have a weekend immune system. Okay, had to do a dad joke, haven't done one in a while. Welcome back to the channel if you've been here before. If you've never been, I really appreciate you checking me out and I appreciate the support. We do mailbags, we do wax pack openings, we do top 5 prices paid with a big focus in professional wrestling collectibles, but really I'll collect anything from t-shirts to cassette tapes to VHS to action figures. Today I'm doing a mailbag. I have 3 parcels to open. I've got 2 boxes. And I've got an envelope. Let's get to it. Let's find out what I got. Let's open them together.
CollectAWrestlePalooza. CollectAWrestlePalooza.
But before I get going with the opening, I want to tell you where I'm at with my collecting. I am buying a lot of cassette tapes right now, particularly heavy metal cassette tapes and or anything from the 80s and 90s that's sealed. Why? When you think of collectibles, you tend to think of the things that are hot right now, which is sports cards and action figures. And what I want to propose is that it's very hard to make money selling the things that are hot. You can if you're buying complete collections for pennies on the dollar and you're flipping the collection and making a big markup, but particularly on the lower priced items. You know, I know someone who buys collections for 1 penny a card, and my guess is that when it comes time to pay taxes on the income, they don't even claim that as an expense or a cost of goods sold, that it's just as if they're buying the cards for free because 1 penny, who cares about that as your cost of goods sold? No matter what you're selling the card for, you're making a profit when you're looking at it per individual card. I don't do that. I don't buy collections. I buy individual items primarily off of eBay because I think it's fun. I like searching, and also I like to have all of my transactions recorded very real, very regular, in a format that I can download at the end of the year to do my taxes in a very clean way. So that's why I prefer that buying style. But with that, it's harder to make a profit because you have a lot of people buying the item, so it's much harder to negotiate. And given that reality, sometimes a good strategy is to find the category that people aren't buying and to take a little bit of a risk in that. So right now I'm targeting music cassettes. I feel like there's still a lot of upside in that, and it depends on the cassette. You can't just go out and buy any sealed cassette. You have to buy particular ones. I did buy a cassette recently for maybe $30, $40 and sold it for about $100, and it was sealed, but it was a marquee, really quintessential release from the history of music. Think about like Beatles records, old vinyls and old records no one cares about except for Rolling Stones, Beatles, Zeppelin in really good condition and ultra rare. And then some people like particular genres like heavy metal, horror. You know, there are particular fan bases that are very fanatic for particular bands or particular genres. Going after that is always a good decision as a collector. And finally, I like music cassettes because it's analog. That is one of the last media choices that was not digital, and we live in a digital world. So owning this little reel-to-reel tape in your hand that's made out of plastic, that has a slip cover advertising the band. It's got the list of tracks, it's got side A and side B. There's so much nostalgia for the last analog cassette recorder. Think about that. The pieces going up and grabbing the tape and running it at a certain speed so that you can hear the music being played off of the magnetic tape. How cool, how cool, how cool. And if you have lived in the time when you used to walk around with a Walkman like myself, you'd put on your headphones, they had little sponge, you know, things on your ear, and then the cord, and it would go to a Sony Walkman or some sort of cassette player. Usually it only had a fast forward and a play and a stop. It didn't even have a rewind button to rewind your song. You had to flip the tape over. Those were the days. There was no volume control. You could crank them so loud that everyone around you heard the same song that you were hearing. You didn't care about your ears and your hearing, and just a different time to grow up. So there's a lot of nostalgia for that for me, particularly with hair metal and heavy metal, as I was into in middle school and high school and that sort of thing. So anyway, with all that in mind, I'm going to open up these 3 parcels. I do know that at least one of them is a music cassette, and I'm going to leave that one for the last one that I open. The first one I'm going to open is this box. It does not say media mail, so it may not be a cassette, but because it's in a box, what else could it be? You're not going to send sports cards in a box this size. So to be honest, I don't know what's inside. We're going to find out together right now. Okay, so let's see what is inside. We have something wrapped in bubble wrap. It is about the size of a cassette, and indeed it is a cassette. GN'R Lies. This is one of the most iconic tapes from the hair metal time in the 80s. Guns N' Roses wasn't really hair metal, but they represent the coolest band from that hard rock time in the 80s, at least in my opinion. Axl, Slash, Duff, and Steven Adler were the original lineup in Guns N' Roses. Izzy Stradlin, Matt Sorum came on board, although maybe Izzy was in the original lineup too, on Appetite for Destruction. And each skull represented a different member of the band. They were one of the first bands to blatantly use curse words. When I was a kid, my mom and dad let me buy a Guns N' Roses Appetite for Destruction copy. I was one of the first kids in the neighborhood to own that tape because I loved Sweet Child of Mine and Paradise City and Welcome to the Jungle. We used to listen to them at Papa Gino's Pizzeria, and I fell in love with the band. So my parents didn't know, or they didn't care. I think they cared, but maybe they didn't know, and they let me buy this tape. And all of the other older kids that had parents that were more strict had to borrow the tape from me so they could do the high-speed dubbing. Back in the day, each cassette player had 2 decks, and you say, why would it have 2 decks? It's so you could play on one and record on the other at the same time, and the ones that were more expensive did it high speed, and they called it high-speed dubbing, which would bring the fidelity down, but you got it done really quick, so you could take a blank tape and you could record your friend's cassette on the tape. And then also, if you had a tape that was a commercial release and you wanted to record over it, there were little plastic tabs at the top of the cassette, and all you had to do was break those off, and then you could record on top of old cassettes that you didn't like anymore. So anyway, back to Guns N' Roses. This was their sophomore effort that included Patience, and it also had some controversial songs, including One in a Million. If you don't know the story behind that, you can certainly look it up and find what One in a Million was all about and why that caused a lot of controversy for Axl and the band. And also GN'R Lies. If you open up the cassette tape, inside there's a pretty saucy photograph, and teenage boys know what I mean. You wanted a copy of GN'R Lies. So anyway, GN'R Lies, gotta have it. This one is sealed. It didn't break my bank. It looked to be in pretty good condition, and that's why I bought it. We're going to open up the envelope next, which I'm sure contains some sports cards, because what else are you going to get in an envelope? And let's see what this is. Another one. I have been buying a number of these, so I won't go over the story behind this one too much. You can check out other CollectAWrestlePalooza videos if you want to see what this is all about. But there's 2 more Raw copies of the Ultimate Warrior Raw. See if I can get the camera to focus on it. Maybe I'll have to do just some pictures on the sides. And through the magic of editing, here are the pictures now. 2 Ultimate Warrior 1989 classic WWF cards. Love this set when I was a kid, loved this set growing up. This is Ultimate Warrior's rookie card, and you want the 1989 version. Like I said, I've gone over it a number of times on my channel, so if you want to find the story of the 1989 classics, look in the archives of my videos. And now the final box. I do know what's inside of this one. I'm very excited to open it. It was at the top of my budget for a music cassette, but it's one I've been looking for, and I couldn't believe I found one sealed that was in my budget. The seal is broken a little bit, if I remember from the eBay posting, but I don't care. You never find one sealed, particularly at this price. So I snatched it up. Here we go. Here it is. Let's open it up very carefully together so I don't nick it anymore. This is the Minister of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne, Speak of the Devil. Look at that tape. How amazing is that? If you want to talk about the 1980s, the panic of occultism, Ozzy Osbourne, the devil, everyone was so scared of Ozzy Osbourne. I wasn't a fan of him or his music at the time. It's only later in life that I've come to reflect on how pivotal and actually brilliant Ozzy was as an artist and as a musician to play into this genre, to play into the horror genre, and to convince people that it was real. He was in the band Black Sabbath, and this cassette tape is an homage to the Black Sabbath songs. This is a live concert, and the songs that he played are all Black Sabbath tunes. So it is a 2-record set in one cassette, including things like Sweet Leaf, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Iron Man, Children of the Grave, Paranoid. People that are White Zombie fans know that they also covered Children of the Grave, which was a Black Sabbath song. But the reason you want this one is you want just the cassette itself. You want the picture. That is an amazing, amazing photograph of evil Ozzy Osbourne. And that was also on a concert program. There are collectors that buy the concert fold-out, which has some Alice Cooper-esque pictures from the Speak of the Devil concert tour. Just really, really cool. So that's why I bought this. All those reasons. Ozzy Osbourne sealed cassette, Speak of the Devil. So that does it this week. I don't know if you can hear the birds chirping in the background. Spring has sprung. Oh, but before I go, I want to tell you an Ozzy Osbourne story. So at one point, one of the characters he played on stage in the Speak of the Devil tour was a pirate, and the pirate actually had a hook that he would use and mime on some of the tours. It's very hard to find footage, and some people don't actually believe it's true, but it's true. And he is on record saying that he bought the hooks at the secondhand store. Okay, we're bookending this video with dad jokes, one at the beginning, one at the end. If you made it this far, thank you for the support. Really, really appreciate you viewing this channel and following me along in this journey. Have a great week. Thank you, everyone. Happy collecting.
CollectAWrestlePalooza. CollectAWrestlePalooza.